Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The last time we spoke, I talked about what Islam has done for me in opening up my mind to a better perspective. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't leave the impression that Islam is done with me in any way, because that's far from the case. You know, who I was, who I am, and who I want to be is work in progress. And what I wanted to highlight in the last clip was just that Islam has opened my mind and my understanding up to many things that were far from me before. And I'm hoping that that's what I gave the impression of, and not the impression that Islam has made me a completely good person, as if I'm not a lot of work in progress. But just to better illustrate how far I've come, I think it's better for some more clarity and more definition in the state of mind change that I was trying to point out in the last clip. And when I was young, my parents divorced. And since then, I took to the street young at 13, 14. So I've been disconnected from the family aspect of understanding ever since I was a child. And it grew to the point where I don't know many things that people would consider normal and natural. For an example, there was a time when I first became a Muslim that I had, because this was when I had came back to my father's house, and I was working at a masjid. So I would go about an hour and 15 minutes drive away to the masjid for the weekend, and then come back during the week. I had classes at the university and was working. So I would work from 3 to 11, drive down to the masjid, come back, go to classes in the morning until around 1, and then go back to work again at 3. And this is a routine. It was kind of tedious, but it was the life at that time. Now, like I said, I was a new Muslim, so I was still fresh out of the street and still very rough around the edges. The edges and the interior. And
My close relative that I need to ask if I could say this
had a baby. Well, she lost a baby. Now, before we get to why that is a part of this, in growing up, being apart from my family and in the streets, at least how it is in America, death is something that brothers in the neighborhood, we kind of get used to. And it comes to be something that when somebody passes, you get over it either with some liquor or some marijuana. And it's something that, you hit the weed and move on from. And it's not really something that people sit and discuss feelings, or it's not a lot of that type of conversation. And from childhood up until that point, this was what I knew and I understood of how to deal with pain. And up until now, I'm not an expert at it, and I'm far from good. And a lot of people may know that when death comes, or some type of issue where there's supposed to be more emotion than I show, it's because I don't really still know how to do it. But in this particular instance, I had a pregnancy that was early and born. It was stillborn. And through my work schedule, they had told me that they were going to have a funeral for the child. And I said, just inform me of when it's going to be. And went back to work in my day-to-day, in and out, busy self. I missed it. I didn't show up for it. Now, when they came and they were telling me about how hurt they were, and some of the people were angry about the fact that I wasn't in attendance, I didn't completely comprehend the magnitude and the seriousness of the situation, because on one end, it's death that comes inevitably. And on the other end, I saw it as a baby that they never knew. So how could there be some attachment that it causes you to have issue with real life relationships that you have? And this was my position. And it became a back and forth that has caused much bitterness that remains up until today. And people probably won't admit it, but it's there. And in growth and understanding in Islam, I've come to see how the bond between a woman and her child, and the child growing inside of her and becoming a part of her, feeding off of her, and the anticipation of being able to love and nurture and raise that child, and then losing it. And the people who are supposed to be the so-called men that give comfort and help bring ease to traumatic situations that females go through aren't there to do that. And instead take a position that in many ways is knucklehead, hard-headed, in a sense arrogant, in a sense stupid and foolish. And at the time, I didn't understand the depth of pain that I was giving. And in growth and in learning, I've come to see how wrong I was, how wrong I am. To where, to this day, if she were to feel that these things have grown inside of her so much that she needs to hit me in the face, and I would stand there and take it knowing I deserved it. And this is some of the understanding that I can look back at now and see how far I've come in getting closer to being a respectable person from who I was, that would have made me in line to deserve much disrespect, even though I felt like I was in the right in many situations. And so this is more what I meant in some of the development that has happened inside of me, and is still going on inside of my mind and in my personality and in my character. So I also want to add that for the men who have brothers or have sisters,
wives, nieces, grandmothers,
daughters,
aunties,
mothers, you should make sure that you play the man's role in taking care of them and comforting them. And I understand I'm still not the best at it, and still need to learn how to comfort correctly instead of always pushing people to toughen up and get over it. Alhamdulillah, I learned not to say those words to everybody all the time, and look closely for who actually needs those words and who needs words of sympathy and empathy and things like that. And so, alhamdulillah, that Allah has opened my eyes and my heart up to this portion of understanding And this aspect of a family, especially as a family leader, the head of the household, needs to be able to understand these type of dynamics in the home. And even though I'm still not a professional at it, I'm a student in the game that can play its part, at least to the best of my abilities. And I pray that I only get better.